Welcome back to part 2. So we left off at the camera having been created and initialized with different settings, and we also left it off to where we had in the event graph 2 nodes for the collision. So let's keep working on that. We'll take the overlapped actor from the overlap start. We'll promote this to a variable. So what this does is we're memorizing what we are overlapping. We'll call this overlapped actor. Okay, compile and save. On event tick, we will check, we will get this overlap actor, and we will check that it is equal to nothing. If it is equal to nothing, we'll do a branch, obviously, to check it. Now this is running every tick, so I really don't want to do anything when this is nothing. But I do want to do something when it is false, because it is set to something and I need to run an operation. So I overlapped and I went into the camera. I need to do something here to tell the camera that I'm into it. We'll figure out just how to do that. In the meantime, if I leave the overlap and I am the actual actor, so if I match over here, if other actor is the overlap actor, and I left the area, we need to disable the tick, right? So to do that, we just set the overlapped actor to none. So to prototype it, we'll say hello when we start colliding, when we walk into it and we're inside it. Here we go. And then as we step out, it should stop saying hello, and there it is. Again, start, stop. There you go. So that's proof that the code works. We need to make the camera work. So if you remember, we implemented within this camera operation component, we implemented functions. Now those need something, and this function here add a camera option, and that's what this external camera will be referencing. So with the overlapped actor, right, we should be able to find a component that implements the interface. The component by interface. And we'll select our interface, BP Camera Management. Now with that done, I have an array here, but it's our thing that we built. We know that there's only one thing that implements that interface, so I can just do a get with index 0. And if I want to be paranoid about it, I can do an isValid with the question mark so that it's an exit pin. And then remember, it's off to false. So there. This is your paranoid check to make sure that it's valid. If it is valid, we will promote to a variable. We'll call this actor component. From the actor component, which I will now drag off of here, I can then call the function. Double clicked it by mistake. Okay. So with the camera, I need to send it a self. This is the actor that we are going to be viewing from. Now, when this is done and it was the overlapped actor, I know that the actor component is also valid. Well, actually, I don't know that this is valid per se, because even though this is checking here, we probably just need to copy that and check it again, right? It could after all be a different actor that's entering this node. So let's try to avoid issues. If it is valid though, now I can actually just use my actor component variable. Because it was already set, the camera got possessed. So off of the is valid, we do a camera transfer, local camera. No, what did I call it? External camera, internal camera. It's internal camera message. Good. So we call this, and then because it will need to run stuff on that side before it is set here, we'll probably want to delay. Also, let's complete this by adding an extra option. We'll call this B allow destroy, and we'll leave it off by default. We'll expose it and we'll paste it into the management section. We'll get, and after we set the overlapped actor to nothing, we will do a branch, and if this option was somehow set to true, whether you triggered it or whatever else, we will destroy self, actor, self. If you want to avoid complications on that, you can just get a reference to self and plug it in so that you're super absolutely sure that the reference is to self and that you're destroying yourself or this blueprint that we're in. Okay, aligning all of that, saving that out. Let's go test if this works by putting the print string inside the section over here. So we go into the external camera, print string external, and then I'll paste that, put it in here and say internal, compile, save current, play, and external. Oops, internal might only have ticked once. So let's prototype it this way, make sure it's being called. There it is. So it is called, it's just that we can't catch it. That also does mean that we should be aware that possibly the code here is running still. So I'll hit F9 and then proceed, and you can see that it's still running. So why is that? Because for a delay of 0.2 seconds that actor is still active. So we'll move the overlapped actor node before the delay. Or just remove the delay altogether. Let's test it that way. See if we need to put it back in later. Internal, that's right at the top. External, internal, and that's the last one entered. Perfect. So that's working for that. Now what does this do? Okay, well, when we go to the external camera, we have a reference, we have a character. Let's unclick context sensitive and go with set view target with blend. You see it right there. And this sticks in the player controller. So get player controller right there. So we have the player controller. we have the camera that we want to go to, and we'll set a blend time to 0.5 just in here, just like that. You can play with the other options if you wish. You could also parameterize them and make it so that they're global. Just connect this here, compile and save. And when we go back to the external camera, I think it doesn't really matter as long as who the target here is, as long as it is something with a camera. And the player, the default anyway, has a camera already, even though we'll need to work on it later on when we add the first person one. So for now, we will just do get owner. And from the get owner, that should already be an actor object reference. So we'll plug that in there, and we hope for the best to see if it works. So what? Home fatal issue. A target must have a connection. Okay. I guess we need to really say self and plug that in there. Oh, target is actor. Okay. So self get owner. It's because I have context sensitive unchecked. I used the wrong one. So remember to check that off. Check that back on, rather, when you do this. And then I said again, compile, test for the best, test and hope for the best. We are outside in the external camera. We are inside into the character camera. We are outside. We are inside. All right. So far so good. No real rocket surgery. Fairly uncomplicated. Completely built-in system here. I like my lines straight. What can I say? So we created that. What do we need to do next? Thinking. So obviously, we already set it up for the control rotation. You saw me do that, and you might be wondering why. Well, if I'm walking this way, now my forward is my forward button, but instinctively I want to press the back button, which brings me on the, the controls are flipped. And that is because the player character itself actually uses the control rotation of the control rotation, but the external camera doesn't have this rotation. So we created that function earlier, and it is part of this gizmo here. And then we can actually call that function interface call. Now this might be that color because it is not implemented at this time. One thing that I want to do is go into the blueprint, and I don't care for calling it that way. So if I go into the function here, and I'll save. Let's do let's say that we just add a 1 to it. See if that lets me set some options for it. Let's see if we need to do it in the blueprint interface. I'm trying to make that pure so that I don't have to mess with it. Control rotation. It seems I cannot convert that to a pure function here. Let's see if that's an option here, however. Doesn't seem to be. So maybe instead of creating it that way, I could remove it from the interface. We'll start without. Okay, compile, save, so that will be gone. Good. And then inside the external camera here, we go back into the functions, and we have the, no, sorry, this one. We will have functions, create a function, and we'll create this control rotation. Right, compile first. Okay. We'll label it with an I'll label it with func so that it's a function. Control rotation is obviously a keyword of the engine instead, which might also have been why the blueprint interface was acting funny with that. But in here I can just make it pure, and that's what I want, because return, and inside the return we have our rotation as a rotator. Okay, so now remember how we called on the event graph, we have this here. We know that we're in the external camera because this got called. So if I go and I promote this to a variable, and I check that it is valid when I do other things to it, so let's proceed with A for actor external camera, and because external camera is the event name, it wouldn't let me name it, which is always a good reason to use the proper leadings to things. So where were we? In the function. Now we have the external camera, and if this one is true, so is valid. In this case, we do want to check with a swap, so to speak. So we have two return pathways, one that's valid, one that's not valid. So in case it's not valid, we can copy off the character, and we have the make rotation for z vector of the control rotation. We can copy the control rotation. Target is pawn, however, so get owner, and then get control. So instead of doing that, we'll just do get controller, get player controller. From the player controller, we get the control rotation. Okay, so that's the one that we're returning here, and we can just split. We can just split and hook up only the Z, because that's how they had it, because they're only interested in the yaw, I suppose. The rest is determined by the movement. It just determines which way to rotate. So with that done, now in the other case we want the camera, and we have the camera, and we get the get rotation, and then split it very same way. Hook up the Z, and we have our system that swaps one camera to the other. Now go back to the third person character and unplug this over here. We have the two rotations that we get. The function is actually called func something. Func control rotation, there it is. And that's the value that we just now pipe in to here. Very minimal editing for your character class if you're using the default inputs. Otherwise, you'll need to modify it for your needs. But so now if this time around I come in from above and I get into the camera, my down button is doing that and my up button is doing that, and I'm no longer getting lost. And when I transition back, it works nicely. Now you may have noticed that it can lead to a stuttering issue when you hit sometimes the direction here. So it's not doing it because of my facing. If I switch facing and then there you go. Actually right now my controls have changed to something else. Going to this blueprint here, going to the camera mode, and we are, because we're not resetting the external camera value, we're getting locked into that. That's what I was afraid of. Hey, look, control rotation was in there open. I wonder if that's what was causing it to not be available. I don't care right now. Probably when I reload the project I can rename it. So as the external camera was set, I need to also unset it. Doing this will make it so that it's no longer valid. However, we have a 0.25 timer delay there. Maybe we should probably add a delay timer here by the same amount, just so that this reference is not destroyed when we destroy the actor later on before the transition has finished. It's just a little cleaner, I think. Okay, so now I go out and my control work fine. Now if I go here, and you can see the stuttering I was talking about. So this is happening from entering the area of the camera, sending the controls over, and then exiting it out real quick. And we want to prevent that because it's easy to do with just a delay node. Copy the delay node, and so we're going to the external camera when we transition. How about we delay the initial event? Let's see the overlap here. So on end overlap. If this is valid, we transition to the internal camera. Let's add a 0.2 delay over here. Good. Or decent, anyway. You can play with those timings and change them to create different effects. You can make the timing more so that these transitions occur less. Also, you can change it so that the transitions do not occur when you're jumping or doing some other actions. That's something you need to work on for your gameplay. Okay, so the next step here, let's see, what do we have? So we need to replace the follow camera here with another camera, and for that we had created the BP camera. We can open that and it's empty, obviously, so we'll add the camera, and we have about 7 minutes to go for this portion. So let's see if we can do that just in time. To lessen the workload, we'll go into the external camera, we'll go into the construction script, and we will copy the portion that is relative to the actual camera, like that. Go into the construction script on this side and paste it. Connect it up, and all the options will work because the camera is an in-camera. But we need to create the variables. To create the variables, you can't click on the name, you need to click on the actual round portion. With all those variables created, I can compile and save. I can type 1 into the camera management option category, drag the other ones in, make them visible like so, compile and save. And now in the third person character we can take this BP camera and drag it on top of the boom Also hook it up to the endpoint of the boom and remove the fallow camera. Now if I do this and I just play, it will have a camera in the middle of the actor because it does not know where to go. There is nobody telling this camera that it needs to be activated, and we need to do that. It's not on construction script because it needs to happen when the game begins. So we'll do a variable here, be auto possess, and it won't affect the actual auto possess value of the camera, but what it will do is we'll get it and we'll branch on begin play, right? If the owner implements the interface, so we copy the code straight off the other camera as event graph right here, overlapped actor. No, this time is going to be owner implements component. Going to the camera, get owner. Should be able to just plug that in there. Good. So if the owner has a component that implements the interface, good, we have this, and then we call the function for it if it is valid. And the function for it is the internal camera. So then I want to be able to possess this camera, and for that I want to add a reference to the internal camera here, just as a self, so actor again, just like the other one really. So now that that's added in there, I just get self, compile and save, and when I pass this information along, when I call this event, it will take self. We need to modify the option out here to use the self value that we got instead, which becomes really much like the above. Compile and save, and if we hit play, we'll possess the correct camera. And now we have our completed system for this section of the tutorial. Okay, maybe not. Let's double check that. It must be that the reference to self is not available when that is being called from exiting the overlap, because we don't know what camera to possess. So we need to prevent that from changing if that camera value is not been passed along. We will scroll this down. We're almost out of time here, so bear with me for just a second longer maybe. We will check that if this is equal to 0, then branch I need way more space. Let's drag them all out. Okay. So if this camera was set to nothing, then nothing. If it's false, however, we should probably get it and promote it to a variable and set it. And we'll set this as the reference to the internal camera, or let's do a internal camera for the actor reference. Okay, and then proceed on with either that or that, and then I will copy that. I will take that and plug it in, and if now this value will automatically be set at least once in the lifetime of the component. So yes, I can just plug it in here, and then even if this was not true and nothing was passed along, it will take that value along. but was that value ever actually set? We don't really know. So it could potentially cause an error if I just plug it in. To avoid that, let's use this reference, which is always a valid reference no matter what, even if it puts the camera in the middle of the character. And we have the internal camera, right? We use either or. We'll do a select on the wildcard. Wildcard select happens to use an index. I'm not sure I like that. Select object. There we go. Let's see if that works. 1 and 2. Worst, it will tell me that it is not an object. Right. How about just select actor? I can't do that, can I? Because one's an actor component and one is an object reference. They do both take into that though. There you go. I didn't know you could do that. You learn something new every day. Okay, so if this is false, if this is true actually, if this is true and the internal camera is set to nothing, we choose the original pathway of using the owner. If it is true, instead we select the internal camera and we select that as the target. Align things, make it look nicer, move this value in here. Let's add a pin to it and kind of bring it down to here, making it look a little nicer. Compile, save, let's test it. So we get into here. Now that variable should have been set. If I transition back out, it's going back to the correct camera. So this is the snapping that I wanted to avoid earlier. Let's review why that is happening. So the transition, my control, I'm in and out of that area so quick that the transition takes place but then doesn't take place. So in order to avoid that, let's delay before the transition starts to happen, which then would be, so this has already happened. We need to go into the external camera class and remember where we placed that delay node. We never placed the delay node here. So this value was valid. This system here implements the interface. It is valid. I have the actor component. I'm going to the external camera. Let's give it a breathing room of about 0.5 before that transition happens. And that should actually just correct the issue. Or maybe not. So this value here has been negated. This value here as a delay already. That delay broke it. I'm unable to get out of the external camera. Can that really be from just adding the delay? Apparently so. So why would that be happening? Let's review this by extracting this here, putting it next to the side here, opening this one up, and So we just really want an overlook of the blueprint as we play the level. Okay. So I am possessing the camera, and that node is apparently still firing. Should have stopped firing by now. The overlap actor. Coming out of that camera is fine. So the issue is really that it keeps on calling it. How do we do that? So once we set the external camera, let's bring this blueprint back up, make it full screen again. Delete the delay node, actually I should move that delay node down, and disconnect here, connect here. We'll have to flag which camera we're using within this external camera, because we haven't done that yet. We have set the overlapped actor, we have set the actor component, we know that it was valid. Let's do this. Let's move this past the delay node, right? And before accessing it, before allowing it, let's make sure that actor component does not equal nothing. So if this is equal to nothing, which is there, we will run this code once and it will set it. If this was equal to something, then we just need to remember to unset the actor component after the camera transfer has been done. So like we did for the overlapped actor, we'll set the actor component to noth. And that will reset the process so that we can enter the camera again. Make this smaller. Coming into it. Seems like I broke it. Obviously this branch is never evaluating to true or false, so I have it swapped. We transitioned, we came back out, we transitioned, we came back out, and as you can see, even though it's tiny, I'm getting no stutter, because between the delay and the fact that it's only run once, we eliminated the issue. Alright, that's it for this section. Thank you for watching. We'll start again in the next step.